In the world of motorsport, there are good drivers, there are great drivers, and then there is exceptional drivers. The once-in-a-generation talent that comes along and everyone takes a step back and just marvels at their sheer natural ability. My video today is about a driver that I believe was so gifted in natural speed that he could just be one of the greatest drivers that has ever lived. One of my racing heroes, Greg Moore. Born on the 22nd of April 1975 in beautiful British Columbia, Canada, Greg's first introduction to motorsport was when he was 6 years old, and his father, Rick Moore, gave him his first go-kart, which he drove around the car park of his father's car dealership. At the age of 10, he entered into competitive competition. He was given his famous number 99 at his first kart club and used this number throughout his racing career. He was also a goalie in ice hockey and was twice named Maple Ridge Athlete of the Year. Showing promise in both sports, he had a decision to make, karting or ice hockey, and he chose karting. He won back-to-back North American Enduro Kart Championships in 1989 and 1990. In 1991, he made his debut in car racing at the age of 16 in the Canadian Formula Ford Championship and won the Rookie of the Year and finished fourth outright in the series against several drivers that were double his age. 1992 saw him move up a level to Formula Ford 2000. 4 poles and 4 wins later, he won the championship and was Formula Ford 2000 champion at 17 years old. The plan was to move up another level to the Formula Atlantic Championship in 1993, but the sanctioning body, the Sports Car Club of America, refused to grant Greg a licence because he was under the age of 18 at the time. But amazingly, when Greg's father spoke to the CEO of the Indy Lights Championship, which was another level up the ladder from the Atlantic Series, but run by the kart organisation, a provisional licence was granted for Greg to race in the first 2 rounds of the 1993 Indy Lights Championship. This was a huge jump from Formula Ford 2000, and at the age of just 17, Greg finished 5th on his debut Indy Lights race, which was a phenomenal performance, and pretty quickly their provisional licence became permanent. There were 12 races that year, and he scored 7 top 10 finishes and excelled on the ovals. He finished 9th in the championship in his first year. Money was tight heading into 1994, and the Moore family were providing the entire budget for Greg to go racing. And in fact, Rick Moore mortgaged his family home and car dealership to allow the family team to continue racing into the new year. And Greg didn't disappoint. He took pole position and the race victory at round 1 of the year in Phoenix. He took 3 wins in total that season and stood on the podium another 3 times and finished the championship in 3rd position. He was starting to finally get the results he needed to impress the bigger teams, and they were taking notice. There was some interest from the Roger Penske organisation, before this man, Gerald Forsyth, made Greg an offer he couldn't refuse. With a 5-year contract in hand, Greg moved into the 1995 Indy Lights season with the budget and backing of a big team that he needed. His talent and speed had been noticed, and Greg was not going to let this chance slip him by. What followed was one of the greatest seasons seen in motorsport history. From 12 races, Greg took 10 victories. At the other 2 races, he finished 2nd in Detroit and 5th in Vancouver. He won the championship with ease and broke Paul Tracy's record of most wins in an Indy Lights season. This dominance guaranteed Greg would move into the top-level IndyCar series for 1996. His dream had been achieved. He had dreamed of being an IndyCar driver, and now thanks to his fantastic results and help from the Players Forsyth team, Greg was able to realise that dream. His first year in the top ranks of the kart IndyCar series was impressive. He qualified 6th for his first race, and in his own words, he was a little nervous as he waited on the grid.
And Paul, another of those new faces is the youngster. He's only 20 years old, Greg Moore from Canada, the Indy Lights champion who dominated the series last year, winning 10 of 12. He's been so very impressive in early testing. He starts today outside in row 3. We're just seconds away from the command for you to start an engine for your first IndyCar race. Greg, what, any special emotions or feelings right now, or concerns?
Well, I just got to say I'm really nervous right now, but as soon as the engine starts, it's all same thing, and you don't win 10 or 12 races without having some skills, so I think that we'll be looking fine by the end of the race.
We wish you certainly great success. There's no doubt about it. This guy is a guy to keep an eye on. He'll start in car number 99 in row 3.
He finished his first race in 7th place, a good solid start to his IndyCar career. Just 2 races later in Australia, on the streets of Surfers Paradise, Greg achieved his first podium finish with 3rd place. And then, on the Nazareth Oval, he claimed 2nd place. He achieved 3 podiums in his first year and 9th place in the championship. He certainly proved he belonged in the series and was only going to get better. He quickly won the hearts of fans worldwide with his daring driving and his willingness to put the car where other drivers dared not to put their car. He loved running the high line on the oval tracks with only centimetres between his car and the wall. 1997 could only get better. He started the 97 season off strong, with a 4th place at round 1 and a 2nd place at round 2 in Australia. And then, at round 7 of the season on the Milwaukee Mile Oval, Greg took his first victory in the kart series.
Only 22 starts in Moore's resume. Could this be the day for Greg Moore and the players team from Canada? I don't think Michael has enough time. Moore thinks he has it wide, and with his fist in the air, he takes the checkered flag.
He followed that up with victory at the very next round in Detroit. But the rest of the season was a little disappointing for Greg and the players team, with a string of bad results. But he did manage to take a podium finish at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course with 2nd place, and he finished the season in 7th place in the championship. He now proved he was a race winner, and would be working hard to come back for 1998 and try and challenge for the championship. 1998 was a great year for Greg. He took 2 race victories and finished on the podium another 4 times. He had a great first half of the season, leading the championship during the early part of the year. Unfortunately, he couldn't quite keep the momentum up and was overrun in the second half of the season by the all-conquering Chip Ganassi Honda team. But Greg finished 5th in the championship that year, and had established himself as one of the top drivers in the series with his fearless and aggressive style of driving. Heading into 1999, Greg was the fan favourite and media favourite to take the title, and his season started perfectly, with victory at the opening round in Miami. But things didn't go to plan, as his Mercedes engine seemed to be down on power compared to the Honda engines. A 2nd in Milwaukee and 3rd in Detroit were all he could muster for the remainder of the year, but he was still driving as bravely as ever despite these limitations. He also had contract negotiations on his mind, as his 5-year deal with the Players Forsyth team was finished at the end of the season. Jerry Forsyth had offered Greg an extension, but an agreement didn't look like it could be made. In August of 1999, Greg announced he would be leaving the Players Forsyth team and joining the famed Penske team for the next 3 years. This was a hard decision for him to make, but when Roger Penske calls, you are certainly going to listen to what he has to say. Greg was happy about his decision and looked forward to his new working environment. But first, we had to finish off 1999 as the season wound down to the final round at Fontana Speedway in California. On Saturday before qualifying, Greg was in the paddock area of the track on his scooter, and unfortunately he was hit by a lady driving a pickup truck, knocking Greg from the bike. He landed heavily on his right hand and received a very serious injury. A hospital visit was required, and it was reported that Greg had broken his index finger and had lacerated his hand as well, that required 15 stitches. His hand was a mess, but come race day, Greg wanted to drive.
Yes, in fact, Greg Moore has just stepped out of his coach, and you can tell by looking at his hand that it is severely injured. Greg, first of all, what happened?
I was on the way to morning practice this morning, and just come out of my coach on the way up, and I was on my motor scooter, and I was going along probably 10 or 12 miles an hour, something like that, and someone was coming at me in a pickup truck, and I guess she decided to turn into a parking spot where I was occupying at the time, and she hit the bike, and I went down, and unfortunately when I didn't want to hit my head, so I put my hand out on the ground, and I've broken a bone inside my hand, one of them, the fourth metacarpal. So it's frustrating, but the CART medical doctors and my guys are working hand in hand on making a brace for me for tomorrow. So we'll get out this afternoon, do a couple laps probably, and then we'll see how we do tomorrow, if I can grip the steering wheel or not.
So do you think that you'll get a good indication? I mean, a 500-mile race is brutal for a guy who's in good shape. And I can say from personal experience, I've broken that same bone. That seems very optimistic in my view.
Well, it's optimistic, but I guess with being young, sometimes you do some things that probably aren't the smartest things out there. But I've got to go to Indianapolis on Tuesday and get a plate put on it anyways, so I can't do any more damage to it if I last the whole 500 miles. So it's just a question of if I can withstand the pain, and I know I'm going to get a couple shots for it in the morning tomorrow. And but the most important thing is that it's safe out there, and if I'm able to grip the steering wheel with no problems, then if there's a bit of pain, well, I'll just try and endure through it.
The team had made a brace for the steering wheel that Greg could rest his hand against while cornering. He also had some kind of brace on his hand and had pain-killing injections. CART officials were not really sure if he should race and gave him 6 laps in the car to see if he was safe enough to drive and also fast enough. The officials deemed Greg fit to race, but he would be required to start from the back of the grid as he had missed qualifying. The race got underway and Greg was flying as he began quickly moving through the back of the field. On lap 3, American driver Richie Hearn lost control and spun his car onto the infield and struck a wall. The car came to a stop and Hearn got out and his day was done. The race restarted and again Moore was pushing as hard as he could, but on lap 9 he lost control at the same spot that Hearn had crashed. Unfortunately, Greg's car hit the submerged access road at the wrong angle and the car was launched into the air and into the concrete barrier. And just like that, Greg was gone. I've chosen not to show the actual crash out of respect for Greg, his family and friends, but is widely available if you really want to see it. The crash was utterly horrific, and you knew straight away that it was almost unsurvivable. Circuit medics got him out of what remained of the car and started resuscitation immediately before taking Greg to the track heliport where he was flown to nearby Loma Linda Hospital. The race, however, continued, and it was just after 2 p.m. local time that circuit doctor Steve Olvey delivered the news to the media and TV audience.
Now we send you down trackside, Gary Gerald.
Paul, we're back at the medical center. Dr. Greg Bowman from the staff here and Dr. Steve Olvey have come out in an announcement for us. Dr. Olvey?
Gary, I regret to announce that driver Greg Moore has been pronounced dead at Loma Linda Hospital. He died of massive head and internal injuries. He was pronounced dead at 21 minutes after 1 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
Well, that certainly was our concern. From Maple Ridge, Canada, Greg Moore, 24 years old, a promising young rookie when he came to the series, the 95 Lights champion. His whole future ahead of him. Won at Homestead this year, was going to move over to drive to Roger Penske's team next year. Our condolences to his friends and family.
"24 years have gone by since Greg has passed, and in many respects it still feels like yesterday. I only watched him from the other side of the world and never got to see Greg race live or meet him in person. But I knew and still know today that we lost one of the best drivers we have ever seen that day, and 24 years later, it still hurts. In time, I have learnt so much more about Greg. Not only his racing exploits, but who he was as a person and the friendships and bonds that he formed over his brief 24 years. The respect of fellow competitors and inspiration that he gave to young drivers trying to make their way in the sport has been a very emotional thing to learn about. I have to say there are some very good videos out there about Greg's life and what he meant to the sport, and I will link some of them down in the description box below. But one in particular is called A Hero's Drive by James Hinchcliffe, and the great story of Greg finally getting to turn laps at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. which, while he was alive, he never got to do. But Hinch took a pair of Greg's signed gloves with him when he qualified for the Indianapolis 500. This story had tears rolling down my face, and it's a fantastic documentary put together by James. Greg would be 48 years old now in 2023, and I have no doubt that he would have been a multiple IndyCar champion, and he would have won the Indy 500, maybe several times. There is not a single doubt in my mind about that. But what else would he have achieved? Would he have gone off to try his luck at Formula One? It's possible, and I wonder just how he would have gone in F1 given the right opportunities. There was some NASCAR talk when his 1999 season was not going so well, and as Greg was an oval master, I'm sure he would have taken to the NASCAR stuff just as well as open wheelers. This is a video I've wanted to make for many years, and I knew I would make a video about Greg Moore one day. But I wanted to do it justice and to try and show just what he meant to me and the rest of his fans. I don't know if I've achieved that or not, but his talent, personality and demeanour mean so much to me that it can be very hard to put into words at times. I am constantly reminded of him and finding myself thinking about his career, the kind of guy he was, and that final weekend and how it could have been so very different. All I can say is, Greg, you will always be missed. Rest in peace, 99.